Hi, I'm Jacqueline.
And I'm Courtney, and this is Caffeinated Crimes.
Sometimes I feel like y'all should be grateful that you don't have to listen to our pre-recording conversations. Sometimes they're great, and I'm like, man, we should have
Mm-hmm.
recorded this. Like, it would have been gold. And then sometimes they are just so unhinged. And today's was a doozy, guys. The doozy, the dooziest
Yeah,
of
we
doozy.
started out um just like gossiping, basically, as
Yeah,
you do. Um,
always.
and then we got into some really gory shit.
Yeah, very, very gruesome, traumatic, situations that we had to share with each other because that's what you do best, right? When something horrifies you and traumatizes you, you have to share it with your loved ones so that they are also
Mm-hmm.
horrified and traumatized.
You can't be horrified and traumatized alone.
Exactly. Exactly. Like I can't sit in this space by myself. I need to pull you into it with me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, which reminds me when I finished Winter Garden by Kristen Hanna this week, and I texted Courtney and I was just like, I just finished this book and I'm not okay. Like I
Yeah.
am not okay. If you've read that book, please message me and let's discuss.
It's on my
Because
holds list, but I'm also currently reading three books at the same time right now, and
oh, you're
I
pulling to
have
me.
no capacity for more. I am. Thankfully, they're all very different. Like one is a book for research.
Hmm.
One is the book I referenced a few weeks ago that I'm reading like a chapter a week. So that's a little
Yeah,
bit
yeah,
more maintainable because
yeah.
it's not. And then I'm reading like my pleasure book. So it's
Hmm.
just it's a fantasy book. It's a good book, but it's like 700 pages and I'm like, "Whew, I'm not going to get through any of these anytime
Yep.
soon." But
You're like, I'll just read these three books for 3 months and then eventually I'll
yeah.
finish them all. Yeah, I
Yeah.
was also reading three books at a time, one for research and then two that I have my physical book and my ebook like I do. And I finished the ebook, which was the Winter Garden, and then Remarkably Bright Creatures, I think is what it's called. It's like a very popular one right now that everyone's talking about on Book Talk. But I had it on hold from the library and it became available, but I was like, I can't start another book when I'm currently reading these other two books. Like, let me finish at least one first
Hmm.
and then I'll. So I had to push it back and I was really sad because I've heard great things about it and I feel like I needed to pick me up after finishing that last book that just absolutely destroyed my entire being. But I guess I'll have to wait for that and keep reading
Yeah.
this book I'm reading for research that is also horrifying and traumatizing. And why do we do this to ourselves, Courtney?
I don't know. We need a lobotomy. I don't know,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. I'm trying to think if there's anything non horrifying to discuss. We discussed last week the Ashton Kutcher whole debacle with them backing up
and their
Danny
letters, and then they
Masterson.
had their apology video.
Yes.
Um,
So that's
it
come out
also
since we
cracked me
last
up.
recorded.
Now everyone is like, I know exactly where they filmed this and like have it in their house, like where they
Yes.
filmed it, like by the pool. And it's like,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was
Just
just doing,
like
because sometimes there's those TikTok filters that people do that's um, like you choose this, that, and you like go back and forth to like
mm-hmm.
like the brackets kind of thing. So
Yeah.
I'll do those. I just never post them or save them because
Mm-hmm.
I just want to see what I get.
Yeah.
And it was like all women, like you're supposed to pick one or the other. And like Mila Kunis came up, and I'm like, not any fucking more, bitch. Like
Right? You're like, well, I did like you, but
that was that was brutal. That was a rough one
yeah.
to learn about. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I really don't have anything else. So unless you do, I say we just get on into this
No, because I could
because
keep talking about that, but then it's just more depressing shit. So
exactly, exactly. So okay, so we'll just jump into other depressing shit because this is a true crime podcast, so it doesn't really get better from here, guys. I hate to break it to you.
and this one was just kind of weird and it was kind of sad too.
Yeah,
It's just like, yeah,
yeah, a little mysterious. For this dark and stormy night. I don't know if it's storming over there. It was storming here, and
it was storming here earlier, but I think it's not at the moment.
yeah, those late summer storms that kind of come and go. Anyway, so now I just look like a boy.
If I were a boy, I think I would live. I'm leaving that in.
Okay. Please do. All right. So our sources for today include an episode of Unsolved Mysteries called Washington Insider Murder, a ScreenRant.com article, a Delaware online article, and the National Institute for Mental Health website. On December 31st, 2010, a body was found in the Cherry Hill landfill in Wilmington, Delaware. It looked like a white male. There were no obvious signs of injury, like a gunshot wound or a stab wound. He was wearing black pants and a white shirt, and some type of black garment was covering his upper torso area. He was wearing a West Point ring from the West Point Military Academy, class of 1966, which would later help identify the body as John Jack Wheeler. So John Parsons Wheeler III was born on December 14th, 1944 in Laredo, Texas. He had two younger siblings, Robert and Janet, and he was born into a family of military personnel. So he was a member of the United States Military Academy of 1966. He graduated from West Point and then from Harvard Business School and Yale Law School. So clearly he was very bright, like super intelligent.
Mm-hmm. Doing a lot.
Yeah. He was the executive director of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial. So he served in Vietnam and planned the memorial for everyone who fought and died there. 30 men from his 1966 West Point class did die in the Vietnam War. And in 1982, as they were building the Vietnam Veterans Memorial, he provided the overall strategy guidance and was the chairman of the board. So this essentially would not have happened without this man. Jack was hired in 2004 when Michael Wynn was sworn in as the Secretary of the Air Force with the George Bush administration. He had also previously worked for the Ronald Reagan administration and the George H.W. Bush administration. Jack brought an intensity to life and thought outside of the box. He was very passionate about everything, no matter how large or small, and he just put the same energy into everything he did. Just really was super into the things that he was into and very passionate about them.
Yeah.
He accomplished so much and also did so while having bipolar disorder. He could be very impulsive and sometimes overly emotional. And bipolar disorder is defined as a mental illness that causes unusual shifts in a person's mood, energy, activity levels, and concentration. And these shifts can make it difficult to carry out day-to-day tasks. So there are 3 types of bipolar disorder: bipolar 1 disorder, bipolar 2 disorder, and cyclothymic disorder. We could not find out which type Jack had, but he did frequently take medication for it and seemed to be able to function well with it, but it did obviously have its setbacks occasionally. Jack was married to Catherine Kleiss for 13 years. They lived in Harlem and also had a house in Newcastle. He had 2 kids that were twins, and Catherine also had 2 kids when entering the marriage. And Jack treated Catherine's kids like his own. Meriwether, who was Catherine's daughter, says that when she met him, he was very funny and cheesy, but also very serious. And at the time of his death, Jack was working as a consultant for the MITRE Corporation, which is a defense contracting firm. So they specialize in artificial intelligence and satellite systems for the military. And Jack was working in the area of cybersecurity. So he was actually working on like issues that we are seeing now with the possible idea of Russia interfering with our elections and Russia and China supposedly hacking into our power grid. Like that's the type of thing that he was working on at this time. But there is nothing found that could link his job to his death that we know of, but there are some theories that involve his work connections that we will discuss later. Jack's body was found at 9:56 a.m. on December 31st, 2010 at the Cherry Island landfill in Wilmington, Delaware. So the body had been there for several hours. They had to call out the evidence detection unit and secure the location and search for evidence. And obviously, like any evidence that you're looking for is going to be contaminated with the trash. Like this is a landfill, like it makes it a landfill. Makes it incredibly difficult to, find actual evidence.
Mm-hmm.
But they were looking for any extra clothing, a cell phone, which they did not find. They didn't find anything besides unrelated trash, but they were able to identify him that day. They knew Jack had a house in Newcastle, so they contacted the Newcastle City Police Department and spoke with a detective who said they were actually on the way to his house to investigate a potential burglary. So it's kind of interesting. So Newcastle is 6 miles south of the landfill. Robert Dill was his neighbor in Newcastle, and he said that Jack was never really there for long, and Robert became the caretaker of the house. He said he liked Jack, that Jack was always doing something or had something on his mind. And Robert was talking to a neighbor and noticed that the second floor window was open in Jack's house. So he went over to the house and he said the storm door was closed, but the main door was ajar. And in the kitchen, there was a tree sitting on the bay window and it was tipped over. Spices were all over the floor and the table. There were broken dishes in the sink. There was a white powder on the floor that was probably Comet because there was a Comet can on the counter, like the cleaner. Jack's ceremonial West Point sword and shield were on the floor. There was also a bare footprint in the Comet in front of the sink. So Robert was convinced that this was a burglary, like due to the state of things. Things are all over the place, and he thought someone had broken in through the side door. Also suspiciously, across the street from Jack's house, a few days before he was found, someone had set off a couple of smoke bombs at a construction site. So there wasn't much damage, but police did find a cell phone, and they discovered that it was Jack's cell phone. So kind of strange. We have three things happening at once. Jack's body is discovered. There's a burglary investigation at his house, and there's an investigation into the smoke bombs across the street. So how are these things related, or are they related at all? The FBI was called into the Jack Wheeler investigation due to his previous employment at the Pentagon and working for a few presidential administrations. And there were close to 10 agencies, federal, state, and local, working on this case and running down every possible lead. Catherine said the last time she saw him, he had been in D.C. He came up to New York on Christmas Eve, and they had Christmas Day together. All of the kids were there, and Jack was in good spirits, and everything was very normal. Catherine said on December 28th, he said he had to go back to D.C. So she was a little annoyed because she thought they were going to the movies because that was kind of their after Christmas tradition, but he said he had to go back to work. So they knew from the time that he left New York and got into D.C. that he was on his phone a lot. Like he just really lived by his phone. On December 28th, Jack goes and works in D.C. for only a day, and later that day, his phone records show that he left D.C. and went to Newcastle, and he arrived around 5:30 p.m. And that night is when the smoke bomb incident occurred across the street at 11:30 p.m. The next day, Catherine said she tried to call him, but she couldn't reach him, and she thought that was odd because she had always been able to get a hold of him. Like we said, he just lived with his phone, unusual to not be able to reach him. On the morning of December 29th, Jack contacted Miter, where he was employed, and told them that there had been a break-in at his home. He said they had taken items that he would typically use for access to their business. He had lost his wallet, key fob, briefcase, and cell phone, and he used his cell phone for everything. Catherine thinks that he was likely very stressed about losing it, but it is strange because Jack doesn't contact the police or Catherine about the break-in, just his employer, because they may have access to a way to get into the building.
Mm-hmm.
And once he loses his cell phone, the timeline of his days leading up get a little murky. We only have witness sightings, which aren't always accurate. But at 6 p.m., Jack is seen on surveillance entering the local pharmacy. He is known here because this is where he goes to get his prescriptions filled when he's in Newcastle. But this time he's looking for a ride to Wilmington. So there were a few people in the store who overheard and offered to take Jack to Wilmington. And investigators believed that he wanted to get to Wilmington to get to his car, which was parked at the Amtrak station. So he had left his car there when he went to New York for Christmas. So Jack arrives in Wilmington, and the next thing they know is that at around 6:42 p.m., he shows up at a local parking garage looking for his car. But he's actually in the wrong garage. He's a few blocks away from where his car is actually parked. Catherine did say that he didn't have a good sense of direction. He was very directionally challenged and would get lost. Very common for him to park his car and forget where he left it. He would take a cab home on certain days because he had driven to work and couldn't find his car, which same.
Yeah, basically they said too with how he was always in his phone and he was doing so many things that it's his mind, he was just thinking of all these things that he wouldn't even be paying attention where he parked his car or driving.
Mm-hmm.
He would just park his car, leave, not think about it, and then lose it or leave it or anything just because he's so caught up in his own mind, not paying attention.
Just so hyper fixated on the things that he's into that those other things are well, that's just not important. I don't need to worry about that.
Yeah. So it's not too unusual that he can't find his car and he's in the wrong garage.
Yeah. And also it's 2010. I think it's just then a thing that cars can have, Like my phone will tell me like where my car is when it's connected to the Bluetooth, like you can see like that
And
kind
you
of thing
parked
or
it like
whatever.
5 days ago. Like, a
Yeah.
lot's happened probably between then. Maybe you did just be like, well, I normally park it here, but maybe this one was full and you forget.
Yeah, exactly. But in this footage, Jack is in a completely different state than when he was in the pharmacy. He appears in distress. He's agitated. He has one shoe off. He's carrying it in his hand. He appears to like look around the corner, peek through a door before he goes through it. It's like he's like afraid of like being stalked, like someone's following him. He told the people at the garage that his briefcase had been stolen. The woman had asked for his parking ticket, and he was like, "No, like it was in my briefcase and it was stolen." And she asked how it was stolen. He just kept saying like it was stolen, it was stolen. He also keeps telling them that he's not drunk. And he also did not have a winter coat on, only his suit jacket. But it was a very cold night, like it's December, almost January in the Northeast. Like it's very cold, and he just has his suit jacket on.
Yeah. So this 40-minute window between the pharmacy and the parking garage is fundamental in the investigation. So like what happened in that 40 minutes? And again, like a lot of people said the drive from like Newcastle to Wilmington was like 10, 15 minutes, not like that far. And Meriwether said when she saw the footage, she said it just didn't look like Jack at all. Like she wonders if maybe not having his phone and not finding his car had made him scared. Maybe on top of also his briefcase just being stolen. Like he's kind of like, paranoid. Catherine wonders if bipolar disorder was the reason he was kind of acting strange the way he was at the garage. She said he would occasionally have a manic episode, that he was very diligent about taking his pills, but bipolar disorder is mysterious and unpredictable, so we don't really know if that could have been the cause.
And like with so much going on, like did you forget to take your medication? Like your house has been broken into, like your stuff to get into your work where you work at like a place that people might try to break into, that stuff
were your pills
stolen.
in your briefcase that was stolen?
Yeah.
Like, because
Yeah,
that was a
exactly.
theory that people were like, maybe he went to the pharmacy to get his medicine because he was gone and then he forgot why he was there, kind of thing. There's a lot of theories. So they also don't know if this difference in his demeanor is from his bipolar disorder, or had he maybe been physically attacked during that time? Because again, his like shoes off, he's kind of disheveled, very different, and it took a lot longer. So like what happened in those 40 minutes? So the next time Jack is seen on camera, according to the police, is 20 hours later. So it is December 30th at around 3:26 p.m. and he's in the basement of the Nemours building, which is an office complex in downtown Wilmington. So investigators find evidence that Jack had spent the night and part of the day in this office building. So there were a lot of hallways in this building. There was a fitness center, employee lockers. So they just kind of started searching for where Jack could have gone in this building. But it was also really extensive where he could have gone. Some employees said they found some things in a stairwell that could imply someone had stayed there overnight, but they were not able to find any personal items that would have been obvious to belong to Jack. So according to the Unsolved Mysteries episode, no one really knows what the connection is with Jack and this building. In there, they're kind of like, oh, maybe he couldn't get to his car. He went underground, almost like he was hiding, trying to find a way out of town. But there's also evidence on the internet that he was in the building consulting with a lawyer and had asked to speak with a managing partner at the firm. So not really sure why that part was left out. I don't know why, but there is people saying like he had spoken to someone in there, was looking for a lawyer, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So at 8:30 p.m., Jack is seen on camera exiting the building. He's wearing a dark colored hoodie, and no one had recalled ever seeing Jack wear a hoodie like this before. And like his hood was up, he's walking down the street. So they're like, I mean, Jack was also like older, like I feel like people of his age and of like things he's done and like Harvard and Yale, like they're not walking around in hoodies a lot of time,
Yeah, especially like where you work and you're wearing suits often and
you have a briefcase. Kind of not that you can't wear a hoodie if you have a briefcase, but you know what I mean? Like you have your idea of what this man looks and dresses like. You
literally cannot carry a briefcase if you have a hoodie on. It's just the two are incompatible. But yeah, I know what you mean for sure.
And this is the last camera like shot they have of him alive. Catherine said she was concerned when she couldn't get a hold of Jack. She thought something was wrong, but she didn't want to imagine anything like this bad had happened. They'd apparently also been arguing leading up to this. Jack had emailed his lawyer saying he felt dazed and boxed in a corner. So this is also like maybe why she was not as concerned when she couldn't get a hold of him, because they'd kind of been the fight. They'd been fighting, and she's like, he's just blowing me off. Like, I'm not thinking his life's in danger. I'm thinking like he's cold shouldering me, basically.
Yeah.
On December 31st, they found Jack's body in the landfill, and after investigating, they determined that the trash around Jack was from Newark, Delaware. So the Newark Police Department was able to come up with a trash truck that they believed picked up the body of Jack. And they zeroed in on a couple of dumpsters on the trash route. So the forensic unit went out and started swabbing each dumpster, and they were able to come up with a partial DNA match in one of the dumpsters. So this is kind of how, we don't really know how he got in the dumpster, but that's how he got to the landfill.
Yeah.
Catherine said to her knowledge, she didn't know of any connection with Newark and Jack. She was like, I don't know why he would have gone there or what would have been there. It's also weird because the last time he was seen was in Wilmington, which is 14 miles away from Newark. So it's also in the opposite direction from where he had been walking. So how did he end up there? Because he doesn't have his car. He's walking. What's going on? A witness did come forward saying that they had seen Jack in a taxi around 11 p.m. According to the witness, Jack had decided to share the cab once he heard it was going to Newark. So they did investigate into this, but again, eyewitness testimony is not always accurate. So they were trying to kind of explore other options of how Jack could have got to Newark, like by train or anything like that. Nothing much came from it. We don't really know if this eyewitness testimony is him and how he got to Newark. Nobody really knows. So the garbage truck drivers did tell investigators it was actually common for people to climb into dumpsters and sleep. People would go in there to find some warmth in the winter months. One driver said that a lot of times when he puts his forks into the dumpsters, that someone will pop out through the top or climb out the side door. He said they actually kind of call them hollerers because they'll like hop out like hollering like, whoa, 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 like don't take me in there, like. It was very, very common. And they said sometimes you can hear them, sometimes you can't. But it was something, it wasn't unusual for them to see that. I mean, it's cold in New England. And if the only thing you can find for warmth was a dumpster and safety, that's where you're going to go.
And I feel like that makes sense, too, for like a lot of unhoused people that, you know, you get kicked off of benches and stuff like that. You know, police come by and they're like, no, you can't sleep here. You can't sleep here. But nobody can see you sleeping in a dumpster. So it's an easy way to hide, you know, away from the public. And then you also have those big steel walls. So that's helping with the wind. So you're getting a little bit of protection from the wind. Like it makes a lot of sense, honestly.
And no one's really going to mess with you or like poke at you, like anything like that. Like it's kind of safe except for, you know, when the dump trucks come.
If you accidentally get picked up in the truck,
I mean, at least maybe it wakes you up so you can jump out in time. But
and it sounds like the dump truck drivers like know to look for that too, like to kind of, you know, be aware that that is a thing.
Yeah. So there is a theory of Jack's death that could have been maybe he was walking around and disoriented, whatever, and crawled into the dumpster to get some warmth. It's December, it's cold. However, the medical examiner's report did list blunt force trauma as the cause of death and homicide as the manner of the death. So when you look at the autopsy and to the degree which he is beaten, it's not consistent with a fall from a dumpster, they're saying. The injuries included punctured lung, broken ribs, bleeding from the head. There were bruises to the face and orbital bones, the temple, the mouth. It seemed more like places that would have been injured when someone attacks you or a severe beating. It does kind of come up later about if you've seen a garbage truck, it does crush, but they're saying it still doesn't seem in line with that. But that's just kind of, they're saying it seems more like a severe beating versus the fall from the dumpster or the dumpster truck.
Yeah. Interesting.
So now they're like, was this targeted? Was it random? Another thing of note from the autopsy report also is it showed Jack had had a heart attack. So don't know if that was from the severe beating or if these injuries could somehow be from the truck. And I do know extreme, like we've seen before, people who go through like this extreme pain and torture or things like that can have a heart attack from just the stress on the body, especially since, I mean, he wasn't old, but he was a little bit older. But I don't know.
I'm also wondering, and I guess the medical examiner would be able to tell like if the injuries he sustained Yeah, because you'll be able to tell if that happened like before or after he died. Because my first thought was like, did he have a heart attack and die? And that's why the injuries are so severe, because he's being dumped from this truck and he's not like in any way trying to, which I mean, maybe he was unconscious. Maybe he was alive. Maybe he'd had this heart
Because he
attack.
was, they said, bleeding from the head. And if he had died from a heart attack, there would be no blood flow.
Yeah.
Like you wouldn't really
So I mean,
have
maybe
that.
he had a heart attack and was unconscious but alive, and then this happened, and so he's not like in any way trying to stop the fall from, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and I don't know if it would make that much of a difference, but I feel like if you're like being picked up by a dump truck and like dumped, we've done a lot of hand motions. I'm sorry, you guys cannot see this. But you're like being dumped into the dumpster. If you're like alive and alert and everything, like you might be trying to like move your body to like protect yourself or whatever. But if you're unconscious, like could your injuries be worse because like you're not trying to protect your head, you're not like hunching, you're not in any way trying to protect your body. Could that lead to the extent of the injuries? Maybe.
Yeah, but it seems like the medical examiner thought it didn't really seem consistent with that. I don't really know for sure. I'm just kind of going based off of what I read. I'm not a medical examiner.
Obviously, I'm not a doctor and I'm talking on my ass because that's what this podcast is.
I mean, they're good questions though, because I had the same question where I'm like, well, could he have just been like this? Like, what is it?
Yeah.
Some people wonder if Jack was possibly hit by a car. So he was kind of acting erratic that night, and like, could he have just stepped into traffic and then been hit? And then he was injured, and so he climbs into the dumpster, kind of back to the unconscious thing, and or could he have possibly even jumped out of a moving car and then hid in the dumpster, or went there for warmth and died of his injuries? Like, could some of these things have happened? And that's how he ended up in the dumpster. So one big question, we're coming back around, don't worry, is if Jack's murder is related to the smoke bomb incident on December 28th. So again, that smoke bomb incident happened like the same night. All this kind of crazy stuff was happening. And late at night, there is a smoke bomb incident at the house across the street, and his phone's found. So one theory is that he was the one who was setting off those smoke bombs. So Jack was a very passionate guy. As we said before, he could sometimes get a little overly emotional, but also was like, when he cared about something, like his whole mind, everything was on it. So he was actually in a housing dispute with some people across the street who were building a big house on historic Battery Park. And he did not like that someone was going to build a private home on public and sacred land. He wasn't okay with it. Catherine said they were both really unhappy about the house across the street. And Catherine said he was really worked up about it. He was like, it's a sacrilege. Like, it is just like, he was very, very upset about them. Like, to him, Battery Park, historic Battery Park, like, that should not be touched. And now someone's building a private home on it. And he took it really personally.
Yeah.
And again, as we said, like, bipolar disorder can make you like more emotional and illogical sometimes. I'm not saying every moment is like that or everyone who has it is like that, but it can do that. It makes your, kind of hard to regulate your emotions sometimes. So this to him may have been a lot bigger than maybe to Catherine or anyone else. So Jack had filed a lawsuit against the construction, and the construction was continuing despite the pending lawsuit. So they wonder if Jack comes back to his house. He realizes his phone is gone. He's upset. He's very hard on himself. Maybe he flies into a panic, starts flinging stuff around. No one really knows what's for sure that happened that night. I mean, it is an odd scene with like spices and the comet and his sword and shield just on the ground. Like, just kind of a weird scene.
But that's true. Yeah. Like, was that someone else or was that Jack for whatever reason? Yeah, that's a good point.
So another neighbor in Newcastle says that Jack's television had been loudly blaring consistently and like continuously in the days leading up to his death. So his TV had just been on really loud for some reason. He also said that evidence was taken from Jack's home, even though Delaware police say Jack's home was not a crime scene. So this guy's like, I saw them take some evidence. Delaware police is like, it's not a crime scene. So, but his personal distress, even if he is the one who trashed his own home and set off the smoke bombs, doesn't really explain his death. How do we get there? And if he was kind of found randomly, like if someone randomly attacked him on the street, that doesn't really line up with a random like street mugging. So people who like typically like street mug, they just kind of leave the victims' bodies where they drop. they're not really going to go hide them. So they're not really going to go through the effort of like picking them up, especially when it's random, like you have no connection to that person. But also, when Jack was found, he still had some cash on him. His Rolex watch was on. He had his West Point ring, all big ticket items that you would want to take in a robbery.
Yeah. Yeah.
So why wouldn't they take those items? How could they miss those if they're hiding the body? Doesn't really add up. So Catherine believes it's possible that his death is related to his connection and trying to get the construction halted. So Jack had recently, developed an interest in hacking, and he may have tried to hack someone involved in the project. And one of his to-do lists that was left behind mentions hacking a target associated with the construction dispute. So he was into the cybersecurity, all that. Like he was kind of learning how to do all this. So Jack believes that the corrupt government officials in Delaware were allowing this, in his mind, illegal construction. So Catherine thinks it could be possible he was caught like attempting arson, doing all this, and then could have been targeted by whoever he was targeting. Maybe it kind of leads back to that. So another theory that's kind of big on Reddit could have to do with Jack's job. So again, kind of the police and the investigators are like, no, his job didn't really have anything to do with this, but Reddit users are like, well, could it have? So he was working at Maitri Corporation and had some of the highest clearance security possible. And he was privy to many government secrets. So, and he'd also worked for like 3 presidential administrations. Like he was all up in that. He had strong connection with the government. He worked as an assistant to the Secretary of the Air Force. His contacts were strong. So they wonder if he could have been the victim of a murder for hire. So there was rumors that he was going to blow the whistle on dumping of chemical weapons stash. So he was going to kind of pull a Snowden. Was Snowden before this or after? Before, I think.
Kind of both, right? Didn't he start like it was kind of around the same time, I think, because he was arrested in like 2013-ish, but like he started like earlier.
Maybe.
Anyway.
So maybe he was the OG Snowden. Anyway, now that I can't remember.
Been so long.
I know, it's been all like 2 whole weeks.
I know, can't be expected to remember that information this long.
Let me see. Hold on, I can real-time fact check. Just give me 2 seconds. Oh, we didn't put the... Okay, I was trying to look at the Instagram post, but we didn't put a year. But around the kind of the same time, like 2010s-ish, this was all happening. Snowden might have been a little bit later. But anyway, whistleblowing. That's where that was all going for that side tangent. So a theory is that the US government killed him before he could talk because they're like, he's going to tell our secrets. Another theory is that he was killed by the Chinese government because of his knowledge of cybersecurity secrets. So they're like, maybe there's this. And the most like condemning item of evidence supporting like any of these theories is his stolen briefcase and other work-related items. And the briefcase has never been found. So the briefcase is gone. Nobody knows where it is, which is like the weird part for me. Like, where's the briefcase?
Yeah. That is super weird. And that does, like, even if his death was somehow related to a heart attack, the cold, some, whatever, that, like, we know the medical examiner doesn't think that that's likely. But even if that was true, okay, but who stole all of his stuff? Or did he hide it somewhere for some reason? I
feel like he would have had to throw it in like a river or something. Because if it was in the house, it probably would have been found.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Like, where's the briefcase?
It doesn't make any sense. Yeah.
So the Unsolved Mysteries co-creator Terry Muir has theories about what she believes happened to Jack. Terry does not believe this attack was random. She thinks because of how the body was found, it was more of a personal attack. As we said before, people who randomly assault or mug don't really go through the effort of hiding them in a dumpster after. Catherine said that he was always very blunt spoken and had made enemies during his career, but never any she thought would go through with killing him. Like, obviously he's going to like disagree with people. He's in politics, in government, in presidential administrations. They're probably fighting about stuff all the time, but never someone she thought would go through like with killing him. So the family put up a very large reward, but got no tips or leads. They, again, don't think it's random. They think it's targeted in some fashion. Missing briefcase is also a huge question. And they just think somebody knows something. And maybe even if it was random, somebody knows something. This happened.
Yeah.
If he was hit by a car, if he jumped from a car, something.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately for Catherine, this is not the first time she suffered a loss like this. Her younger sister, Emily Fisher, was a Memphis socialite and was stabbed to death in 1995, and it took years to solve her murder. So now she's lost her husband and doesn't know what happened to him either. 4 years.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy?
That's insane.
Like, this poor woman.
That's awful.
So Delaware Crime Stoppers offered a cash reward for information leading to the arrest of subjects responsible for the death of John Wheeler III. So if you do happen to have any information whatsoever on this case about Jack Wheeler, about what happened to him, about where his briefcase is, please contact Delaware Crime Stoppers at 1-800-TIP-3333. Or go to Delaware. Did I say too many threes? That was 4 threes. It was 1-800-TIP-3333. There we go.
Yes, you nailed it.
I got lost in the threes. Or go to DelawareCrimeStoppers.com or Unsolved.com. And that's just the weird, strange, mysterious death of Jack Wheeler. So what do you think happened?
That is so bizarre. I don't know. The heart attack is interesting, but like you said, like it wouldn't be unusual to have a heart attack because of an injury, a major frightening situation.
Cold. People have heart attacks in the cold all the time, walking around. True.
But like what happened before that led to him acting so erratically, to his stuff being stolen? Or was the erratic behavior just because he wasn't on his medication? Like we said, maybe the medication was stolen or he forgot to take it because of everything going on. So like, oh my gosh, there's just so many pieces to this.
That's the thing for me, because like, I feel like I could make an argument for any aspect of this.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, maybe he was just having a bad night and having maybe a manic episode and climbed into the dumpster. And then the only thing is, like, just from the autopsy being like, it's not really consistent with what the injuries that would have occurred, which I don't really know what the studies are on the injuries occurring out of a body in a dump truck.
Which of course it depends on the specific site and everything, which we don't have access to know, like, oh, it was exactly this many feet and this or whatever. But like, if you just think about watching trash being dumped into like a landfill, like it can be pretty aggressive. Like, that's a big fall. Yeah. So I'm just
but I do wonder also, because like, the trucks do like push all the trash in, but it's like with all these specific injuries, would it be enough? Because they were saying his body, like, obviously he had like internal injuries, but it's almost like his body didn't show like if he had a punctured lung, I guess like his rib could have broken. But you know what I mean? I feel like those things like push the trash in versus like have claws and stuff. I don't know. Like, it's just so weird. And so I'm like, I feel like I could see that. Like, he somehow gets here, he's cold, he's disoriented, maybe he's hungry, maybe he hasn't eaten and he's just kind of out of it, climbs into a dumpster because it's warm. I could see maybe he was targeted because of these like weird, and the briefcase missing.
Yeah.
I just don't know.
I mean, is it possible that he somehow like lost the briefcase and was like panicking? But again, how do you lose a briefcase? But he is very, I don't say aloof, but
but that briefcase was like his phone, like his life. You know what I mean?
True.
Like, I mean, he had the highest security clearance ever, and his work stuff was in that briefcase. So I don't see him. You know what I mean? Like,
losing.
But
would make sense if his panic, if he did lose it because of that, but that would make it less likely for him to lose it. You're right.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Unless maybe he just like had a panic and then was like, I don't understand though, if you're in this like panic and if you're wanting to intentionally die, his steps don't make sense. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like if he's like, oh no, I've really fucked up on this. So why go to a city that you have no known connection and climb into a
Yeah.
dumpster and even think that maybe I'll die being picked up? Because I mean, maybe you could survive being picked up by a dump truck and taken to the landfill. Like I don't really know. I don't know how.
Yeah.
I don't know the science of dump trucks really.
Yeah. I've never been inside one to really know what goes
Yeah.
on, What does his family have any like theories that they lean more towards?
So, like I mentioned, Catherine kind of thinks it might have to do with the construction site and his
Oh
involvement
yeah,
in
yeah,
trying to
that's
get
right.
that stopped. But overall, they don't think it's random. They think it's targeted
Okay.
somehow.
Yeah.
That's just kind
I
of
mean, that
maybe
makes the
her
most
leaning,
sense.
but she thinks somebody attacked him and put him
Yeah.
in a dumpster or something.
I mean, I think in my brain, as far as like the list of like most likely, it's like it was a targeted attack. It was some kind of accident, and then it was like a random attack would be below
Hmm.
that. Is kind of my like order of
Which it's interesting too, because the medical examiner put the manner of death as homicide also.
yeah, yeah, that's
Like
true.
put it as murder, which I mean, those can be wrong, but like I feel like to put that, you have to be pretty confident.
Yeah, yeah. And maybe I just watched too much TV to not have a better understanding of how it works in the real world. But I feel like if they like were confident enough to say that it was murder, that they would have more theories about specifically what, unless I mean it's just a
I guess
brutal
that's not really
beating
the medical
and
examiner's job,
yeah,
though. Like their
that's
job
true.
isn't to figure out how they were murdered, just
Yeah.
and like I know back from another episode we did where they were talking about the medical examiner because they put suicide on the death certificate there, is they were like, you do not put one of those unless you're 100% sure.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you like that is opening an investigation when you put murder, or for suicide, like you're closing the entire
Hmm.
case because of that.
Yeah.
So it's like
Because a
if
lot of
you
times they'll
are
put like
uncertain,
undetermined.
undetermined, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm like, I feel like for the medical examiner, because the medical examiner doesn't talk to detectives at all. Like they would just be
Hmm.
looking at the body and being like, this
Yeah.
is blunt force trauma is the cause and homicide is the manner. And they wouldn't really
Hmm.
know, they're not supposed to, at least,
Yeah.
any of these other things going on, like the
True.
house being
True.
broken into, anything like that. Like they're just supposed to do
Yeah.
the autopsy. Doesn't mean there's not corruption
Hmm.
or a bad medical examiner, but I do know like their job is to do that and nothing else.
Yeah, that makes sense. Wow. Well, this one was a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely let us know what you guys think. What are your thoughts on this case, your theories? What other theories have you read that you think have some traction? All that good stuff. But before we get to that, Courtney, what is your perk of the week?
So, my perk of the week is that I officially got invited to a book club that happens at my work.
Oh, that's
So, I
exciting.
got added and now I get to be in a book club with some of my coworkers. So, I'm really excited.
Nice.
I feel like a
That's very
cool
cool.
girly now. But
Do you
now
have
I
your
have to
first
go.
book yet?
Yes, I have to go buy it because there's a really
Okay.
long wait list.
Oh
But we're
no.
reading Not Another Missing Person by the girl who wrote Wrong Time, Wrong Place.
Oh, okay.
So it's
Okay.
her new book. So that's the
Oh,
one they
interesting.
picked. So I'm really excited. And like from the ones I've heard they picked before, it sounds like they picked pretty good ones overall,
Mm-hmm.
like
Nice.
cool, like books and stuff. Um, so I'm really excited. I'm a little nervous because I'm like, am I going to have the confidence to speak? But I think about the book, but there's only like six of us. At least
Do it.
it's,
Yes.
you
I love
know,
it.
I'm fully integrating into the work, I guess. Been here
I'm very
six
proud of
years.
you.
Been here 6 years and finally committing to my job. No, I'm just
You're
kidding.
like,
But
okay, I guess I'll join. I guess I'm not going anywhere. I guess I'll join the book club, guys.
yeah, no. But I was really excited when one of my coworkers was like, we have a book club, like you should join it, and like invited me. So I
Yeah.
got really excited. But
Oh, that's awesome.
that is my perk of the week. Jacqueline, what is your perk of the week?
So my perk of the week, last week, Courtney mentioned that it is officially football season. So super excited about that. But specifically, we had our first football party this weekend. So I'm sure you've heard us talk about this many times before, that my husband and I have our like Sunday traditions of like all the stuff that we do, leading up to the game.
You definitely weren't drinking champagne. I'll
we
tell
did
you
not.
that.
No, it was very funny though. Poor Andrew. He because we had a bunch of people over, which was what I was getting at with my perk of the week. I literally said I wasn't going to do perk of the week. So they're just like, oh, I saw people and here I am people. And, but just the fact that we've, always done this, like just the two of us. And then for a while when we lived in North Carolina, his sister lived there as well. And so she would come over, but that's been years and years. So like they got to come over, and then like my aunt and cousin and, his parents and just a bunch of people got to come over and watch football with us. So it was fun to get to like share those traditions, with everyone else here now, and it get to be like a big family thing and not just the two of us. But in anticipation of the game, Andrew bought 3 bottles of champagne, which obviously are still sitting in my fridge because nobody drinking champagne this weekend.
Yeah, I know. Whenever our game didn't really go well either, which is why Kevin wanted to stay home, because he was like, this first week, I need to be alone. And then after that, I know my expectations for the season, but right now I need to be alone.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
And then he was like, saw the Bengals game and he was like, oof, glad I didn't go over there.
He's like, they're not having a good time over there either.
But
and that is another positive thing about having people over on Sundays now, is that like Andrew's day is ruined, but it's not as visibly so. He at least puts on a little bit of a happy face.
He puts on a happy face. Kevin has been trying to not get as mad about like Madden and football and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because I try not to get annoyed at him, but like I have this like toxic trait where he starts like yelling and getting annoyed, and then like my reaction is I'm like, it's just a fucking game. Like it doesn't fucking matter. People are dying. Like, why are you being like this? So I'm trying not. So he's trying to not be overly reactive, and I'm trying not to react to his reactions.
But see, the thing is, I feel like we get to a point, and then that's when we say that. Like, we let it go a few times, but then it gets to a point where you're just like, shut the hell up. Like, it's done. It's over with. Like, you're allowed to be angry, but there's a point where we're done and we're moving on now.
Yeah.
You missed that point.
And there's nothing... I don't want to make it seem like me and Kevin are fighting every week, but it's like sometimes like when he's getting so annoyed at the game, then I just like mentally check out because I'm just like, I'm getting annoyed at this. So
you're like, it's not that big of a fucking deal.
I'll come back when we make a comeback, or I'm gone for the rest of the time. But no, he's been better, but yeah. So
Andrew did not get too bad. He was pretty good, but he did, as soon as the game was over, I mean, probably like 5 minutes before the game ended, take off every Bengal item that he was wearing and change his clothes, because that's what
at least he didn't put it in a trash bag this time.
That is true. He did not throw them away. So progress. So yeah, that was my perk of the week. Just that we're getting to share this with family now, and Millie loves watching kickball, as she calls it. So yeah, so again, let us know what you guys think about this case. Tell us what books you're reading. Tell us about your NFL teams, as always. You guys know where to find us on all of the things, and we're also on patreon.com/caffeinated crimes, where you can find a whole bunch of bonus episodes, and you can get a sticker. We just got a bunch of new stickers printed, so they are hot off the presses, ready to go. We also got some pins. We're going to get back into our video episodes. We slacked a little bit on those. There's several that are out there, but we're going to get you guys some more.
But nobody was watching them, but we have all the backlogs. So if you start watching them, we can just mass upload.
That's true. That is true. They exist in the world. So if you want them, if you join Patreon, let us know, and we will make that happen for you. So
yeah. Did you say patreon.com/caffeinated crimes? I'm sure you did, but I think I zoned out.
It's okay. It never hurts to say it again, because if you zoned out, the listeners are probably zoning out.
It's hot in this room. But if you can also
wrap it up. You can turn on this AC.
What we need to do is post the videos so you can see my face at the beginning and the recording in the end, because every time I leave here, my face is so red. Anyway. If you could just give us 5 stars on Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen, just say good things about us, nice things about us. Same on YouTube. Give us nice comments over there to We haven't gotten too many hate comments lately, but, just to balance it all out, that would be greatly appreciated. But in the meantime, go have a cup of coffee.
And don't commit a crime.